Hello everybody, my name is Safi and welcome to Overcoming the Diet Mindset podcast. I am 7 years post-op and a trainee psychotherapist. On this podcast, my aim is to vanish crappy, fad dieting and unhelpful thinking, to reclaim our mindset with a little rewiring so we can stop yo-yo dieting and get off the roller coaster for once and for all. Welcome to my second episode, where I'll be reviewing the second part of the book, GPS for Bariatric Success, a holistic guide to transforming your mindset, achieving sustainable weight loss, and maximizing your well-being. On the first episode, I reviewed the 4 steps that the author said was needed for long-term success. That was rewiring your brain, finding your big why, visualization, meditation, and breath work. So today, I'm going to discuss hormones, gut health, and the big part that stress plays in long-term weight loss success. So, the author goes on to explain that on this chapter that she is too much of a big project for her, or too much information for her to go into depth about hormones and biology. And I agree, it's very intense. So she does explain it a lot, and I'm going to do my best to explain the science bit. So, bear with, I'm still a little bit nervous. Only episode 2, so we're sticking through it. So what she discussed is that actually Eastern traditions have always known about the connection between the brain, the mind, and the body. And they've always operated from a place that where it's just one big connection, interconnected. And, that's the way they've always... So they meditate a lot more in Eastern cultures. They are in touch with the whole self, take a very holistic view, where in Western society, the author says that science is now always discovering the connection between the whole self, the mind, the body, the soul, all of it. And we can't try to solve one issue without the other. So we can't solve a physical issue without taking the psychological part into consideration. And I think this is a really good point. So, for example, why some of the diets don't work is because we are very quick in the West to prescribe for example, a weight loss club, and they just concentrate on the physical aspect. Doctors prescribe medication for weight loss, and that is just for the physical aspect of weight loss. We have not been able to marry those two as well as they have, let's say, in the Eastern traditions, as this author alludes to. So stress, that there's no way of eliminating. So author says there's no way of eliminating stress. Stress is something that we live with. It's something that we need, and it's something that we have to learn to manage. So chronic stress is something that not only makes us want to eat, because when we're stressed, for example, everyday stresses. So if you're going through some financial issues, if you're worried about work, if you're dealing with complex relationships, any of those stresses that are perhaps keeping you up at night are also impacting on not only your emotional health, but also on your physiological health. So stress, she goes on to explain that stress is stress triggered by, for example, lack of sleep or depression. Prolonged stress, chronic stress, toxic stress is something that in today's world we can't escape from. But it's something that we need to learn to manage in order to be able to keep weight off. And the author goes to explain that there's now scientific evidence that stress is the main driver of obesity and the main driver of weight regain after weight loss. So stress is not only something that happens just on a level of, just making you anxious, but it's also driven by hormones. Cortisol, the doctor goes to describe that cortisol is a hormone that's there to keep us alive, especially when we were hunter-gatherers and we were worried about being attacked by lions and not being able to stay alive. So cortisol, as soon as you are stressed out, so as soon as you're stressed, then the cortisol runs around your body, and you are now ready to run that mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, whatever it may be, to get away from that threat. And obviously we need that, but the visual that keeps on coming up for me is almost like when I don't know, maybe I've seen it in cartoons, but so there's somebody trying to run somewhere, and then it's usually a little man or something, and then a bigger hand is holding his head, and he's just trying to run but getting nowhere. So I thought that was a good visual. So you're almost running and you've got nowhere to run. Your body's ready, get out of my way. I'm going to go and, save myself, save my tribe. But then nothing really happens. And then now your body needs to refuel because you've wasted all that energy. And that's when it sends you to the cupboard for biscuits. My favorite, Jaffa cakes, all that sugary goodness to get your energy stores right up there again, just in case another attack, or just in case you are threatened or your life is at risk. Research conducted on mothers that were pregnant identified that mothers that were in chronic stress were more likely to have children with weight issues in the future. And knowing that we have a fat gene, about epigenetics, it's just another thing to worry about, another thing to feel guilty about. And to be honest, I've always been somebody who's super stressed. I've always had anxiety, and so during my pregnancy I was. So it was just another thing to worry about. But we don't want to feel guilty about things that we can't control. The author goes on to explain that we can control it. We can win the battle by learning to calm our nervous system down, by learning to manage that chronic stress, that harmful stress that we experience. We don't want to, our body's going to want to trigger that flight or fright, mechanism in our body. And we have to find a way to live with some level of anxiety, but not to always rise to that point where our metabolism is made to slow down, our body's ready for a fight, and that we are always aroused, looking for that next stressful situation. And also with weight loss, especially with dieting, is always stressful on your body, especially if you've gone on to those really extreme diets. I actually did one, and all I had was protein pumped through my nose, so saline, and I carried a bag around with me. Actually, at that point, my mum was in hospital, and I wasn't allowed to use the canteen, the visitors' canteen, because they actually thought I was a patient. So I had to convince them, no, I don't have any, I don't have any illnesses. I'm just trying to lose weight. So I actually can't remember what it was called, but I think it's anyway, it was bizarre. I've done so many bizarre things, and every time I've done those kind of drastic diets, that must have been such a shock for my body that it automatically would have really kicked into survival mode. would have kicked into that point of something's happening. We now need to get ready for an attack or for, to flee. And I feel really guilty about that, knowing, but, it's not about, I always think it's about understanding that we can only do better when we know better. So with stress, it's about managing it. And then the other hormone that the author talks about is ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hormone that triggers our hunger signals. So it's like a thermostat, a bit like the heater at the moment. So as soon as we lose a significant amount of weight, it starts to, detect that, oh, no, we need to get back up to that point that we like, that homeostasis, that where we have always been, and we know we're going to be safe. So ghrelin it turns up our hunger, and it's almost a little secret machine that we don't know about that's being pumped up. And then there's a third one is leptin, and leptin is there to regulate our energy as well. So, and she also adds, I totally missed this point, that actually with chronic stress and so much cortisol in our system, then we become insulin resistant, and basically our hunger, it's just our full gauge, it doesn't work anymore. It starts to all malfunction, and it stops to work. So manage that stress at every turn, every opportunity. Be really aware of it and utilize everything you've got in your power to manage that stress. The next part that she discusses in the book is gut health. And now we know the fact that the stomach, our gut, is like our second brain, and they communicate. It has a very big impact on our emotional state and how we feel. And it's really important. It's a really important organ to really take care of. The really good thing for us is that actually if weight loss surgery resets it. It gives us a fresh start where our gut health and our cultures are really, they're basically almost, reborn again. That's a good word. So they're reborn, and then we just have to utilize that and make sure that we eat food to utilize that. So also it very much plays a part in weight regain and managing that and eating. I haven't tried them, but I've never really tried those huge tablets, probiotic tablets, but they are around. I think yogurt, Greek yogurt is as good, and there's all those other little, little pots in the supermarket now. So she says to make sure that you eat food that's really good for your gut health, and look after that, and make sure we stay away from excessive use of antibiotics, and because Western society and the medicine, the level of medication that we have is detrimental to our good gut health. So that's briefly covered, and that's another thing to really think about as well. She talks about what food should we eat for long-term weight loss, and I really like this because she explains that diet industry has taught us to victimize or alienize. Is that a word, alienize? I think that's a new word I'm going to start. Carbohydrates, and I see a lot on the weight loss groups and communities, talks of protein shakes, protein. We're staying away from the carbohydrate, and very much continuing that narrative of stay away from carbohydrates, keto and red days on Slimming World, if you did Slimming World back in the day, one thing you will realize on this podcast is that I refer to Slimming World a lot, and I know it's going to be alien to you if you're perhaps in any other part of the world, but they used to have red days and green days, and yeah, I'm very much accustomed to it. Anyway, I've gone off on another tangent. Back to the doctor's recommendation on what to eat. She says whole food. And she says no diet works. Long term, every diet will always fail. And it's not to go on a diet, but she says to give your eating a new way. So eat from a new palate, basically. Think about things that are good for you, things that are, if they're whole food. So it's no brainer. If they have come out from the soil, then they're good for you. If it's in their natural form, then they're good for you. If they're in a package and it's tinned, or you could have it on the shelf for 3 years, then it's not good for you. So reduce, she also goes on to say, reduce sugar, but don't eliminate it. Don't eliminate nothing, because when you eliminate things, then you go back onto that, that road back to your dieting, where when you restrict your intake of food, then you'll end up stressing your body out also, and triggering that cortisol. Because suddenly it's going to freak out that something's changed and you're going to starve to death. So she says eat good, high fiber, complex carbohydrates. And live by the principle of 80-20, treat yourself and enjoy life. Which I totally agree with, because I think I've always gone on a diet, wanted it to be the most strict diet possible with all the rules, and if it didn't have at least 10 rules, then I wasn't interested, because I thought the harder it was, the more the likely it was to be successful. That was obviously not true, and I still know people in my own life that keep on doing the same thing, keep on insisting on going back to a diet that they've done 10, 11, even 100 times, but insisting that they must go back, and the harder it is, then in a weird way, that they need to prove to themselves that, the harder it is, if they succeed, then they are, then they're strong and they can achieve. But we know that actually it's a lot more complex than you're a weak person, you're a strong person, you're just greedy and you can't do calories in and calories out. Do a bit more exercise and eat less. We've passed that now. We all know science has evolved so much more. We know it's not just about calories. We know there's a lot more at play here. And the diet industry is always going to be lying to us until it realizes actually 90% of diets don't work, until you deal with the root cause of weight gain in the first place. Obesity is an illness, like any other illness, so we've got to treat it that way. Catch people early enough for early intervention, and then, it's great that we've got interventions like weight loss surgery, because it gives us that fresh start. It gives us that capacity to start all over again, look at everything, and go from a place of information, being informed, and a place of looking at weight loss in a holistic way. It's not about, for many of us, it's not about just wanting to look a certain way, and it's about wanting to be healthy. Well, I think I'm going to stop it there. That's part 2. I'll do a part 3, which is the summary and what I've learned and what I've been implementing. Thank you for listening. I'll have a new episode next Friday. Come and say hello at the Gastric Mindset over at Instagram. Also, if you've got a friend, a Barry best friend, let her know about the podcast. I hope it's helpful. Thank you so much for joining me again. Take care. Bye-bye. I appreciate you for being here with me. I hope you got some value from this episode. If so, please give me a review. It will make me super happy and support others from our community to find the podcast. Share it with your Bari bestie. Connect with me on Instagram at Gastric Mindset. It'll be wonderful to hear from you.